Welcome to another episode of the Laura the Library Lady podcast, a production of the Massillon Public Library.
Hi, it's Laura the Library Lady here at the Massillon Public Library for the latest installment in our football series on the Laura the Library Lady podcast. Coming to you from our studio high atop the Massillon Public Library here in beautiful downtown Massillon, Ohio. And today I have with me the directors of the Massillon Tiger Swing Band, the famous Mr. Jason Neel, and Assistant Director Mrs. Jenn Smithhisler. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us, Laura.
Well, Mr. Neel, I understand it's going to be your 19th year here at Massillon pretty soon as the head of the swing band. Is that right?
That's correct. We're finishing up 18 years together, in fact.
Oh, both of you. Awesome.
Well, she's been here before me. But
I did not know that, Jen.
We've been working together now for 18 years, and we're almost done with the school year. We're on the final push to the end of the year, and so yeah, it's been a great time.
Yep, we've been together for 18, and I've been at Massillon for 21. This is my 21st year of teaching here.
And that's amazing, because I remember when you were a little girl playing with the gravel in your grandma's driveway. So can you tell us a little bit about yourselves, where you went to school, how you got into band and everything? Start with you, Jason.
Well, I was born in Canton.
What?
And I know. And I went to the Canton City schools till I was in 5th grade. And my dad, who was went to Massillon, moved us to Plain Local so that I did not go to McKinley.
On purpose?
On purpose.
Wow.
So I ended up in Plain Local and graduated from Glen Oak High School. Did all the bands there, the marching band, the jazz band, concert band, kind of fell in love with music there.
And what did you play?
I played the trombone.
Neat.
And I went on to Ohio State and marched in the band there and, studied music education. Taught for 8 years in the Green Local School District as an assistant band director before I was called to come interview for this job. And so I only, I had 8 years as an assistant and then took over as the head director here, and kind of the rest is history. But
that's awesome.
Yeah.
We were talking before about how the kids that you are teaching now in band weren't even born yet when you started here.
Correct,
so
yeah.
It's like the era of Mr. Neel is just
18 years or younger. Yeah, all of our students would have only had known me as the head director of the band in their lifetime. So that's kind of, it makes me feel old. And, it makes me feel good to know that we've been able to sustain something for that long.
Yeah, that's nice
and,
to have consistency.
Jen and I working together, we work so well together, and, I couldn't do anything that we've accomplished without the team. So I love this staff. I love these people, and it's a good group to work with.
All right.
And I was born in Massillon. I grew up in Massillon. I went to Washington High School. I graduated in 1999. I was, obviously came up through all the bands. I was also in the choir program as well here. Was a Washingtonian, did jazz band, all of that. Upon graduation, then I went to Bowling Green State University, where I did obviously a music education major. I was in bands and choirs there as well as being in the marching band up at BG. Loved that. While I was in Bowling Green, I also got the opportunity. I actually enlisted, and I was in the Air Force National Guard Band of the Great Lakes for 11 years. So partway through college, an opening came up. I auditioned. I got the spot. Then went to basic training between my sophomore and junior years of college. And then the Air Force paid for my last 2 years of school.
Great.
And I worked as a bandsman for the Air Force, for an Air National Guard band. And I was in that band for 11 years before I got out of the Air Force. And so I was doing this job concurrently with that, because when I graduated from BG in 2003, I got hired right on here. This was my first job as the assistant director at the high school. I got to come back and work with Chris Smith, who had come back at that point to help with the bands.
Stint
yes,
as band
exactly.
director.
And with Dana Heyer, and then Dana moved on to Wadsworth, and Jason and I, as we said, have been working together for 18 years.
Great. So you've been here all along.
Yes, ma'am.
While still doing the Air Force Band.
Yes.
And you went around and did different performances?
It was a typical National Guard setup, so 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks in the summer.
Okay.
So we were stationed up in Toledo out of the 180th Fighter Wing.
Very interesting. See the things I learn about people from Massillon that I didn't even know. Well, can you talk a little bit about what's going on with the band and what's changed maybe, or what you've brought in different over your tenure?
Well, it's interesting. Over the time since George Bird, 1938, I'm the 10th director of the swing band in the last 85 years. But when I was hired on, I was the 5th director in 6 years. It was just a lot of turnover, and so we coming into that situation, I was kind of like, okay, now what do we do here to make this a Massillon band? And I really relied so heavily on Jenn. She marched in the Tiger Swing Band.
Right.
She's from Massillon, and her family's got ties to this. And so I thought we did a really good job of capturing what we considered to be the Massillon Tiger Swing Band throughout the years, because every decade's kind of had a different flavor to it.
Oh, I'm sure,
if you will. And the opening routine has looked a little different, and obviously different uniforms, different little things that each director kind of did differently. And we tried to take something from each of those eras and kind of,
so that everybody saw something that they connected with, no matter when they were in the band.
Whenever they were in the band, they saw something. So that first year, we did a lot of homework, and we really came up with 2 words that have kind of driven our philosophy of what the Massillon Band is. And those 2 words are class and energy. And we really felt that, when people look at the Tiger Swing Band, they see a first-class organization, and they have a high standard, a standard of excellence, and they want to be a great band. And George Bird was an innovator here. Back in the 30s, he was doing something that nobody was doing. He was inventing the halftime show as we know it now. And so that's always kind of set Massillon apart a little bit in our minds of, this band is special, it's unique. It's a first-class organization, and we want our students to represent that well. So acting with class, treating one another with class, performing with class. But also the word energy is, when you see the Massillon Band perform, it's a show. And that's George Bird's, staple from the beginning, was it's showtime. And you can't put on a really entertaining show if you don't have a lot of energy. Now, that's looked different over the years. But we tried to capture those 2 words, and that's kind of driven everything we've done together. But we also brought traditions back, like Stand Up and Cheer. There's a perfect example of a song that they weren't playing when I got here.
I never played in high school. Yeah,
She
it
never
kind of
played
fallen by the wayside.
It was written in 1939 by a student.
Oh, wow.
The George Bird had a contest, who could write a fight song, and a student wrote Stand Up and Cheer. And so we brought that back, and there were a lot of people who recognized that, oh my goodness, they've brought back something we knew.
Yeah.
And they really liked that. And so we tried to bring something, like we said, from all the different eras. So when I first got to town, I didn't want to be just another one and done.
Yeah.
So we tried to, get the crowd on our side, if you will. And I think we were successful at that. I feel like people have really embraced me as a director and our staff and what we're doing, and we've been able to build on that over the years. But that first year was a special one in trying to
kind of establish yourself and your traditions to go with the Massillon Tiger Swing Band traditions. Well, and we've been talking about George Bird, so Jenn's grandfather was an important part of that George Bird swing band era, because he was the very first drum major.
Correct. He and my grandmother were both in the first George Bird Band. She was right guide clarinet, and he was the first drum major. And then after he graduated, he went on to come back as the major ed advisor for a long time.
And his name was Clayton Bergdorf.
Correct.
I remember him. not from any of that, but when he was retired, he was a volunteer at Spring Hill Historic Home with my mother. And so I remember him in the 70s guiding the outdoor tours up there at Spring Hill. And they used to call him Bergie because his name was Clayton Bergdorf.
Right. That was his
Everybody called
lifelong
him
nickname, yes.
And tell us your grandmother's name. With her
My
maiden
grandmother's name was Dorothy Luttrell Bergdorf.
And I know she used to play the organ or the piano, but she started out with the clarinet in the
She
band?
actually started off with the piano. She
Okay.
took piano lessons from the time she was really young. She was a very accomplished pianist, organist, and accompanist. And then when she got into, I think, junior high, she picked up the clarinet on top of
see.
it. So
Okay. And now, did your grandfather play an instrument?
he played the tuba.
Wow.
He was a sousaphone player.
Oh, wow. And then he became the drum major.
Correct.
So do you know of any special training or what he had to go through to do that?
I do not.
Because he graduated in 1939, right?
Correct.
Way before your time. And unfortunately, I know
I was going to say yes. And unfortunately, he actually passed before I was born, very shortly before I was born. So I never met him, but I've heard lots and lots of stories.
I'm sure, yeah. Famous Massillon name, you know. And that's something that's really special, I think, to have a drum major because, you know, a lot of bands don't have one. A lot of people have no idea what that would be or look like, and it's really a cool addition to have that person with those talents. And speaking of energy, I think that's a big addition to the band's energy and what people see, you know, in a
for
parade or on the field, that there's
Absolutely.
that drum major with doing all the things. And
The strutting and the high tosses.
exactly, yeah. So that's cool. Was there ever a time that you didn't have a drum major during your years?
You know, we had my second and third year, we had a drum majorette.
Ah, okay.
My first year, we had a student, his name I believe was Nick Randolph, and he did that drum major role. And I know the people were very pleased to see somebody out there, and I don't know if he had, I don't know exactly what came before him, but I know that my second and third year, we had a featured twirler / drum major-ette.
Okay.
But she basically was just performing the duties of the drum major, like during the opening routine or during pregame. After that was over, she went back with the majorette line.
I see, yeah.
But most of the time, we've been able to have a drum major of the 18 years that I've been here. And part of that was I got connected with the drum major at Ohio State.
Oh, I see.
And they've got some great clinics, and they're always trying to get more kids interested in that skill because that's a very specific skill set.
Definitely.
And so the more drum majors they can kind of create in the high school level, the more they have to choose from when it comes from,
Time
you
to
know,
go to
comes
Ohio
time to go to
State.
Ohio State and be the drum major. So getting connected there really helped kind of train some of those first people to do this. And I think it's kind of taken on. We've got 2 kids trying out for drum major, you know, next week.
Awesome. Oh, my goodness.
So it's still something that I think kids want to do. And like I said, you're out front of the band. You do create a lot of energy. You're one of the 2 names that we read at the beginning of the halftime show, and that's the drum major, and the other is Obie the Tiger.
Ah, yes. Well, that would be pretty impressive to be that student, you know, to do that. I know you just had your majorette tryouts, so you've got your new majorettes
Correct.
set for next fall. And do you have any other specialized units in the band at this point?
Well, we've got our OB auditions coming up next week.
We had our drum line,
Okay.
and they're part of the band, but
Sure.
they have to audition for which instrument they're going to play. And so we set that drum line early as well. So just this week, we set our drum line and our majorettes. And we're about to do OB and drum major and our squad leaders.
Okay,
So those are kind of all of our
Picking the leadership team. That's gonna
spring
help.
auditions, yeah.
And then tell me, what are some of the other different bands that you have at the school that are not marching band?
All right, well, we have 3 concert bands that are leveled. So when the freshmen come in, they all stay together. They were an 8th grade band. They come up to the high school, they stay together for 1 year as a freshman band, which we really like, being able to keep the freshmen together. It allows us to train them when we have things that we need to explain because it's brand new to them. We can take time and do that in freshman band class when the other kids have already been through it. They don't necessarily need all of that information again. So it's just nice to keep them together for 1 more year, really building that skill. Then we have already announced our other 2 bands for next year. We have 2 other concert bands, the symphonic band, and then the wind orchestra is the top level band. So they audition for whichever one they want to be in, and based on their skill level are placed in either wind orchestra or symphonic band. All of those are curricular bands that meet during the school day. Another curricular band we have is our jazz orchestra, and that's the students that want to play that jazz music. And this year I have 21 in that group, and that group meets during the school day. Other extracurricular, or I should say co-curricular bands we have, obviously the Tiger Swing Band, but then we do a pep band for basketball season, and then the pit orchestra for the musical is made up predominantly of students as well. Did I hit everything? I think
that's a lot of band groups.
Yeah, we have 8 if you count the Tiger Swing Band, 3 concert bands, jazz, pit, musical. A lot of stuff going on at the high school, and it's a great opportunity for kids who want to be involved in more than one band.
Yeah, and different times of year and all of that.
Right.
So your students who are younger, who are in the schools, younger schools feeding into Massillon Tiger Swing Band, how much do you 2 have to do with what they're learning? I'm not sure what your setup is with the music program at Massillon.
So I am pretty much exclusively at the high school. I stay at the high school to accommodate that Jason can go down to the junior high.
And I go every day to teach the 8th grade band.
Okay.
And that's something I requested when I got here. And as far as I know, I'm the first high school band director to do that. But I've always believed that bridge between 8th and 9th grade is so crucial, because you're leaving a building, going to a total unknown situation. Everyone remembers their first day of high school and how daunting that can be. And so if they know me and they're a little bit more familiar with the band program and how I do things, they're going to be more likely to join the high school band. That's always been my thought. I believe that's true. We can't scientifically prove that, but
you could go back and look at numbers probably.
Look at numbers, yeah.
If you wanted to do math, but
I get to go over every day, and our administration is really supportive of that, both at the junior high for me to come there, and the high school to excuse me to go do that every day. And like Jen said, she stays exclusively at the high school, so I can do that. And we've got a great staff of directors down in the junior high who teach grades 5 through 8. That's meeting when all our other high school bands are meeting, so we don't really get to work with the 5th, 6th, or 7th in any capacity.
Right.
But we've got Chris Nussbaum, Katie Catalfina, and Emily Butts are our 3 directors who teach all those kids. And you're talking, around 300 kids at that level for 3 directors is a lot for them to do. And we rely heavily on our feeder system, like you said.
On the foundation that they're setting.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea. I don't know how you came up with that, to be the one to go and do the 8th grade. That's a wonderful idea. I think that's probably, really helped with your success. That's a great idea. And make those kids comfortable.
Right.
That was the plan.
Well, it's been working so far, it seems. What are the numbers like in your Tiger Swing Band? How many students are you getting each year?
Well, I'd say, we're over 100 pretty typically. In fact, only one of the years out of the 18 have we been under 100, and that was my 2nd year. And I remember that being kind of a year where we said, okay, this is how we're going to run things. And some people, kind of chose to leave. And that you got to kind of we call it pruning, right? If you're going to grow, you got to
What's
prune.
that term? A weed out?
Yeah.
I think in college you have a weed out class.
Yeah.
If you're not going to do this, then...
Part of the issue I mentioned, there was so much turnaround and so many different band directors, and
so there wasn't a good, solid, established culture.
Yeah.
Or at least not a positive one.
Yeah. And so kids decided, well, here's Mr. Neel. He's going to do things a certain way. He's going to expect me to do a little bit more than I want to do. And so I'm going to go do something else. And band got a little smaller, but we've been able to get some good growth. And it's not just about numbers. We try to keep the quality at a place where we can do what we do, which is put on a new halftime show for every home game.
Yes.
And if you don't have kids who can read music, and if you don't have kids who are willing to work, that's impossible. And so the culture that Jenn mentioned, we are all about building culture and sustaining that culture so that we can have great shows, but positive experiences for the kids. You know,
Right.
You want it to be a safe place where kids want to be. And it wasn't always like that, but we've built, I think, a pretty healthy, good culture over the years.
And then they have a good relationship with you.
Right,
and
right. And you mentioned numbers. So next year we're looking between 110 and 120 right now. So
That's wonderful. That's great.
that's been pretty standard for where we were. I
Right.
think we were growing, and then obviously COVID hit, and that kind of derailed a lot of that feeder system. Really got hit the hardest.
Right. Yeah. Kids weren't in school.
And now we're seeing, those kids coming up. And I think it's going to be a few more years before bands in general, and we talk to band directors all the time, they're all seeing the same type of trends in numbers going down because of what happened in 20 and 21. And
Right. And I'm sure choir is the same or
Yeah.
maybe worse, people breathing and
Well,
all that.
it was just, you interrupted the skill development of so many students. And then when you don't have the skill, you're not successful. When you're not successful,
It's not fun.
Yeah.
It's not fun, then you want to
don't
quit.
want to do it, yeah.
And we give all the credit to the kids who stuck with it, even especially when things got hard in those years where how do you run a band when you can't be together?
Exactly.
How do you keep that together? And I thought we came through it as well as we could have. But those were tough years and for everybody.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Wow. So anything on the horizon that you can see that's going to be new or different this next school year with the football team are the champions. There's a lot of popularity,
Oh, absolutely.
I'd tell you the biggest difference I see right now is right now we only have 5 home games scheduled. And, last year we had 8 shows that the band did. So only doing 5 shows will feel like a break.
Yeah, it'll feel like you just,
Yeah, we're hardly working. No.
yeah.
It's such a commitment, and it's such a large amount of work to put on a new show. And I think some people realize that. I don't think
Yeah.
everybody does.
And in our other podcast, Bob Wenzel mentioned that,
Yeah. And being able to do that, puts a lot of work on us, puts a lot of work on the kids, but I think they take pride in that, to be one of the bands that still does that.
Yeah.
I think that was the norm way back. They were doing different shows with lots of schools for the home game, but most schools only have 5 home games. You're
Right.
5 at home, 5 away, but
Well, then
Massillon
even
is-
at that,
yeah.
now most schools, I would say, do 2, maybe 3 shows for a season.
And then they
Where our
just
commitment is
repeat.
where our commitment is we do a different one for every home game. So
Well, then that probably, it's more work, but it keeps it fresh for those students. They're getting to learn new and different music, new formations and steps and
Oh,
all
yeah.
of those
and it keeps
things.
it exciting for the crowd too.
Yeah.
Right, and there's your energy again, which,
Right.
Absolutely.
you've got that energy in the audience, and that's going to feed into what they're experiencing while they're out there marching.
Yeah. When our crowd, and they love us and they support us, but when they've seen the show before, they don't bring the applause like they do when they haven't seen it. And our kids know that, and I think they work hard to put on that show for the crowd, for the community, knowing that they're going to get a great response. And like you said, that energy, they feed off one another.
Right.
And so we try to be creative in the shows. And that's been, I think, one of the toughest things is finding new ideas to stay fresh after so many years and so many home games.
Right.
People come up to us, show idea. Well, we did that. I got a great idea for a show. We did that. But
We were just having that conversation with Carla Marsh, our major ed advisor, the other day. She threw out an idea and we went, we did that. You weren't here yet, but we did that.
well, and over 18 years, we could probably resurrect a show we did 12 years ago and nobody would necessarily know.
Well, right.
But
you would know.
We would know.
Right.
And we like to,
If we're going to resurrect it, we need to reimagine it. So
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something too that's sometimes kind of fun if you do take kind of
Take an
the
idea
kernel of
and-
an idea
yeah.
that you had before, that you did before, and go, oh, well, this is new and that is new. We'll add this and change that.
Well, and one of our favorite things in the spring that we do, we're getting ready here in a couple weeks to do it, is we call it a brainstorming session. So we invite any of the kids in the high school band that have ideas or just want to be part of the discussion, what shows we're doing for next year. We have an afternoon after school that they can show up and we just all start talking, whether it's a theme idea or, hey, I found this great song, we should make this fit in a show somehow. Just
That's
brainstorm
wonderful
and come
that-
together to try to come up with
Yeah.
good ideas for shows.
That really says a lot about you too, that you're open to that and you want that. You invite them to come in and do that.
I think some of our
Part of
best
it is
shows,
we're out of ideas.
but some of our best show ideas have come from that. And sometimes it might not get used that year, but we keep a database of
Yeah.
them. And, when we come around and we finally find, oh, now this song came out that will work really well, and it kind of reignites that. And
Yeah, and there's part of
Maybe
your
then-
culture how you listen to those students and take their ideas seriously. And goes back to George Bird with the contest and the kid who wrote Stand Up and Cheer. I mean, you're still willing to take ideas from the students, and that really gets them involved and makes them invested. So I think that's a
Oh yeah, anytime a
Great
student
idea.
can take ownership of what they're doing, they invest more. And but no, we rely on their ideas with so many shows to come up with, and we welcome that. And as we sit here right now, we don't know a single show we're doing next year.
it's
Not
all
yet.
fresh. It's all going to be fresh.
Well, we're hoping these kids bring some great ideas in a couple weeks, and that gets us stirring. I mean, they don't come up with all the ideas,
Sure.
but just feeding off their energy. Just like, they throw out an idea, and that'll get me thinking about something else, or maybe we'll play off this, and it's a fun session. So we're looking forward to that in a couple weeks.
So speaking of kids, you were mentioning, Jason, your daughter went to Massillon.
All three of my kids.
All three of your kids?
Were in the band. They actually live in North Canton, and they went to North Canton schools through 8th grade. But then I brought them here. We open enrolled them so that they could be a part of the Massillon Tiger Swing Band. Mostly so that I could see them and really have a relationship with them. Because if they were in band at another school, I would never see them. I'd
Right.
never see them perform on Friday nights. So really to keep a relationship with my kids going in those high school years, but also I love my staff so much. I wanted my kids to have these folks in their lives and, to mentor them and teach them. And so, yeah, Emily is 22 now, and
Oh, wow.
Lauren's 20, and my son is 17, and he is a junior, about to be a senior. So
Oh,
my
nice.
my baby's going to graduate after next season. So it's fun to watch my kids come through the program, and hers are about to start.
Yeah,
was
his is
gonna
going to
guess.
graduate, and my daughter will be a freshman next year. She's in his 8th grade band now,
Oh,
playing
fun.
clarinet.
Just like her great-grandmother.
Correct.
Neat.
Yep. And then my son is in the 6th grade band playing trumpet.
Fun. Wow. Now, did your parents also play?
My mom did. My dad was in band at Longfellow.
Okay.
Through, I think, 8th grade. He was a percussionist, but then he didn't do it in high school. He was too busy doing other things, and he worked at the Y.
Okay. And his name is Mr. Ruckert.
Jake Ruckert.
Ruckert.
Yes.
Oh, I've been saying it wrong all these years.
Yep, it's Ruckert.
Oh, my goodness.
And then my mother,
Terry.
Terry Bergdorf Ruckert, she was in the band. So she played trumpet and French horn, and she marched in the Tiger Swing Band for 2 years, because back then it would have actually only been 3, but she didn't march her senior year because she was focusing on some other things.
So, really took after her parents.
Absolutely.
That's neat. Do you have any other band roots, Jason, back when?
My uncle was in the Ohio State Marching Band. He played the trombone. And when they sent home the paper, what instrument do you want to play? And I just had to circle one, and I didn't know. And my aunt said, hey, your uncle played trombone. And I said, okay, that sounds good. And he's got one. So I ended up using his trombone.
Sure, yeah, neat.
And I ended up going to Ohio State and marching trombone in the same row that he was in when he was in the band. So that's kind of and we share the same birthday, which is Christmas Day.
Oh, my goodness.
So, yeah, and my oldest daughter is born on Christmas as well. So we've got a Christmas
and trombone history.
Trombone
going.
history. And yeah.
Man. That's fun. Well, I want to thank you, too, for coming today and talking with us. Is there anything else you can think of, any funny stories or challenges that you've had over the years? I like to surprise people.
Funny stories. I will tell you this. Just this past fall, we celebrated our 85th anniversary of the swing band.
Okay.
And we had the largest alumni band Massillon's ever had on the field.
So much fun.
And that was just a highlight as I look back, seeing all of those alumni from all different eras coming back with the current band. And if anyone was there that night, they got to feel that energy and electricity in the stadium. And we do that every 5 years. So we'll invite all the alumni back for a halftime show, in, what will that be, 2028?
For the 90th.
For the 90th anniversary.
Yep.
Ooh.
But I tell you, that's just the thing for me, is seeing generations of people come through the swing band. It's been here before we were here. It'll be, we're just stewards right now. And it's so cool to watch families come together. And we talk about band as a family. Mm-hmm. If anybody's been in band together and you go through that marching band experience, there's something unique about it. Putting on that show together, you're sweating out there in the summer. It's a little different even than being on a sports team, because you're not, trying to win a victory.
And because literally everyone is involved the whole time. Because, if you're on a baseball team or a football team, there's only 9 or 11 guys on the field at a time. If you're in marching band, everyone's out there.
True.
Everyone, we're all depending on each other to do our part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So kind of the family that Massillon Band is been real special to be a part of. So
that's awesome. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Neel and Mrs. Smithhisler, for being with us today. And we're going to come out and see that Massillon Tiger Swing Band in the fall.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for listening to the Laura the Library Lady podcast. Be sure to check out the rest of the episodes on the Massillon Public Library's YouTube channel. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and many other podcast platforms.